Hey, what's up, y'all? If you're interested in going to Nassau, Bahamas right now and what it's like to travel to Nassau during COVID, all of the requirements that you have to fulfill to visit Nassau, Bahamas, this video is for you, so keep watching. Hi, my name is Kim, and I'm the creator of WorkHardTravelWell.com. I talk about travel, lifestyle, and tech. So do me a favor, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. Let me know that you're watching. Do me a favor and drop a comment in the chat where you're watching from and let me know that you can hear me okay. So let's go ahead and get into this information about traveling to Nassau, Bahamas right now. Okay, thank you, someone. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. Eliel says that they can hear me. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to get that feedback. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear it because this information is important. And thanks for watching from Manchester. Appreciate that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. The information about traveling to Nassau right now. United Kingdom, that's what's up. I've only been to London, so thanks for watching from Manchester, United Kingdom. Okay, so I'm going to share this information. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see it. And basically, to visit Nassau right now, there are some travel requirements. And basically, whenever you are visiting a different country, you want to make sure that you know this information, that you do research. I have a video called Countries that are open to travel or open for tourism right now, and I talk about how you can go about finding that information really quickly. What are the travel requirements? Which countries are open? So you definitely want to check out that video. It's in the description. Check it out after you watch this video. So the requirements to visit, and let me add this to the stream so you can see it. Okay, so for visiting, this is basically going to be a Nassau travel guide, and before the trip, which is really important, is there's going to be two distinguishing things you need to consider. So if you are vaccinated and if you're not vaccinated, and vaccinated is considered if you have been vaccinated for 2 weeks past the dosage. So past your last dosage. So for Pfizer and Moderna, you have to have 2 dosages, and for Johnson & Johnson, it's 1. So whatever that 2 weeks past your requirements for that vaccine, that's when you're considered fully vaccinated. If you're not fully vaccinated, you're unvaccinated, there's different steps that you have to take, and I'm going to go through that right now. For non-vaccinated travelers, you have to take a test 5 days before arrival, and the date of the test is considered day 0. And day 0, so for instance, I travel on a Sunday to Nassau, so I took my test on Tuesday, and that counted as day 0. So Sunday was the latest that I could travel using that test result. So that's really important. You can go to Walgreens, CVS. I really like Walgreens because I can schedule that online, and I got my test the next day. So that allowed me to be able to apply for what is called the Bahamas Health Travel Visa. And normally you do not have to and prior to COVID, you did not have to have a visa if you're coming from the U.S. to visit Nassau. But right now, because of COVID, they have what is called the Bahamas Travel Health Visa. And that includes health insurance, but also it's required. So if you're vaccinated, you only have to pay $40 for U.S. and Canadian. If you're not vaccinated, you have to pay $50, and that's for basically all other countries. If you're not vaccinated, you're going to have to pay $40 if you're staying 4 nights and 5 days. So if you're leaving on that 5th day, it's $40, and then $50 for other countries. If you are staying longer than 4 nights and 5 days, you're going to have to pay $60 for the travel health visa, and that includes a test on day 5. So, if you're staying beyond that 5th day, you're going to have to take another test, and that's called day 5 testing. So that's only if you're not vaccinated, and then it's $70 if you are in other countries besides the US and Canada. So that's important to know, that if you're not vaccinated, you're going to have to take that test on the 5th day. And there are locations that will be provided if you go to the Bahamas.com link, or your hotel may provide testing. So that's important to know. All of these things are important, and because if you don't follow these travel requirements, you could be fined, or you could, worse, be either sent back to the U.S. or jailed. So it's like, you really need to pay attention to these things so that you can have a smooth trip and you don't have any serious fines or whatnot. So let me show you really quickly what it was like to apply for the Bahamas Travel Health Visa. So to apply to the Bahamas Travel Health Visa, you're going to go to travel.gov.bs, and that allows you to be able to, first you have to create a profile. Let me zoom in so you can see this. First, you need to create a profile, and then you need to include your travel documents. And of course, if you're traveling with children, you would put that information. And vouchers would be if you're wanting to buy a voucher to pay for a test for your 5th day. And again, the 5th day testing is only if you're not vaccinated and you're staying beyond the 5th day. And the profile looks something like this. I've kind of just took a screenshot so that you don't have to see all the information, but you would put in your information, address, health information, and you would put in your travel document, which is your passport, and you need to make sure that you put in that information and have a photo copy of your passport, because you're going to have to upload it. And also you're going to put in emergency contact and children information if you're traveling. And so here is what the document looks like for the travel application. And okay, so you would select who's traveling, type of travel, basically how many number of visits you've had in the Bahamas in the last 5 years, and date of arrival, time of arrival, and things like that. You're going to have to know your airline information, so have all this handy so the system doesn't time out. It could be kind of annoying if you have to start all over and the system times out, because you're going to have to fill this information all over again. Your date of departure, and you have to know your hotel information, so you need to put in what type of trip this is, your accommodation type, the address of the hotel or Airbnb that you're staying at, your destination island, and then here is where you upload your PCR test. So the test must be a PCR test or basically a swab test, and then it just confirms you had a test within the last 5 days. So make sure, if you're not vaccinated, you must have that test taken within 5 days. If you're getting value out of this video, be sure to hit the like button. And while you're here, if someone else needs to be watching this video, make sure you share it with them so they can get knowledge on this as well. So you put in your COVID test date. You can put in and then another important thing is, if you're taking your test at Walgreens or CVS, they usually send you a link that shows you're tested negative, here's your results, and then it'll show just something very basic. What you should do is go into that link and download the PDF of that form or the test, and so it'll show you more information on where your test was taken, the address, the doctor, whoever, the phone number, because you're going to need to put that information when you fill it out. So I take it a step beyond so I can get the PDF copy of my test results, because you're going to need that to fill it out. And that's what I traveled with and uploaded. So that is a key difference. But again, this is only if you have not been vaccinated. If you've been vaccinated, above is where you would upload your vaccination card. So, and then you have to fill out countries you visited in the past 6 weeks. And then this is kind of just stating, you don't have, more than $10,000 to declare, and that you're going to abide by the rules. And then it has a link to the group travel insurance program. So like I said, this includes a certain amount of travel insurance. You definitely want to read that. If you're someone that needs, more extensive coverage, you want to read what's covered in that what you're paying for before you buy, additional, or determine that you need additional travel insurance. I purchase additional travel insurance only because I travel with electronics. I purchase World Nomads because I need coverage on my electronics, and that wasn't covered in this policy. Okay, so that is the travel health visa application. It's pretty standard, straightforward. I would just say make sure you have everything in front of you that you can either copy and paste, look at really quickly, because you don't want to have to start all over. It's very frustrating. And so after I applied for the health visa, I received basically some emails, and it is advised that you apply 48 hours before your, departure date, because it can take up to that amount of time. Fortunately, I received my test a little less than 24 hours after I took it. I uploaded those results. And then like 30 minutes later, and it was after 5, so I was kind of surprised that I would even get a response. It was after 5 p.m. Eastern. And 30 minutes later, I got the email was, let me make sure you guys can see this. The first email was at the bottom, you see, travel visa application pending. And then the next one was payment required. So that basically meant that someone's reviewed it, and now I need to go in and pay for the travel health visa. So that was really quickly, but I will say, do not rely on the fact that I got my results, or I got the approval in 30 minutes. Consider that they are advising give up to 48 hours. But it was pretty quick. Some people have said it's taken some time, and lately it's been quick. So just, consider that. Don't go by what happened with me. And so after I got that, I went in to make my payment. I got a confirmation of thank you for my payment. And then it says my trip application has been processed. And what the result is that you get this travel health visa. It shows your trip ID, status approved, and it has all of your information. And this is what I printed out to take with me on my trip, because you're going to need to show this before you even get on the plane. And we'll talk about what to expect during the trip. And let me know if you guys have any questions while I'm going through this information. Okay, so during the trip, you won't be able to check in completely for your flight. So if you're used to being able to check in during your flight and everything like 24 hours ahead of time, you won't be able to finalize it. It's going to say come to the airport, basically complete check-in at airport. You won't be able to get like your basically your boarding pass or anything until you get to the airport, because they want to make sure that you have the travel health visa that I mentioned and showed you a copy of, and also your test, COVID test results, and also, your standard passport and showing that. So that's, you have to come to the airport. So leave time for showing that information. And then when you get to your gate, it's not done. You need to show that same information to the gate agent so they can mark off, make a note of on your boarding pass. So that is important. There was a lot of confusion when I got to the gate. I thought people were just kind of trying to change seats or whatever, but they were following the rules. You need to come to the gate agent and show them that information before you board. So don't get in line thinking that you can show them the information. They don't like that, and it actually slows down the boarding process. You need to show it to the gate agent before you get in line to board, and then they're going to make sure you have that, whatever that mark is, before you get on the plane. So that's important. That's at the time of this video. It could change, but just know that when you get to the gate, don't rush. Don't leave enough time to get to the gate to do that. Don't just walk up to the gate after, eating somewhere or whatever. Make sure you leave time to show your documents to the gate agent. Okay, so once we got to Nassau, we also have to show the same information and documents when you go through customs. So make sure you have it. I just had a little manila folder and carried that information. Had it easily available in my basically carry-on so that I can get to it when going through customs. Okay, and then from the airport to, any hotel within Nassau or Paradise Island, you can either take a shuttle or you can take a taxi or a private car. And if you do a private car, it's normally, I would expect you to pay about $50 round trip, or excuse me, not round trip, one way for $50, and that includes 2 people, 2 bags. And that also included a stop at the store because the hotel didn't provide water, daily water and whatnot at the hotel. So I wanted to make sure I had some water easily accessible in my hotel. And then depending on the hotel, you may have to show, the driver may have to show they had a recent test. So at the Atlantis property, the taxi drivers had to show their recent test, and they're dropping off. Sometimes they even asked us to show our room key, our band that we had, to make sure. So it was very secure in that sense, and they also wanted to make sure the taxi drivers had a recent test. So the way I kind of ensured that is I found my taxi driver contact information and I hit them up on WhatsApp and just asked hey, are your drivers able to show that proof? And so most taxi drivers are used to that by now, but I just wanted to verify before I reserved a taxi. And at the time of this video, the curfew is in place. Actually, let me back up. So for unvaccinated travelers, another thing to be mindful of when you're traveling is that you need to take a daily questionnaire. And that comes to your email address around 7 a.m. each morning. And you have to answer 6 questions, such as, do you have any symptoms? Have you been exposed? Do you continue to wear a mask? All of that good stuff. And you have to answer that daily. That's for unvaccinated travelers only. So that is important because if you miss a day or you just don't respond, you could get fined or jailed. So definitely pay attention to that. Make sure it comes early in the morning, so do it before you go out into your excursions. And again, this is only if you are not vaccinated. At the time of this video, the curfew is from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. But hotel amenities are accessible after that time. So I chose to stay in a hotel because our resort that had amenities such as restaurants and the casino and things that would be open after the curfew, because I was actually celebrating my birthday during the time, and I just didn't want to feel like I was confined to the room, because at the time the curfew was 10 and I believe the restaurants closed at 9. So I just wanted to be sure I had access to other things and I wasn't really bored on the trip. Okay, so this is an important link to look at is, so you want to check, because like I said, this is the curfew at the time of this video, but it could change. So you can go to bahamas.com/travel updates and look at the updates for when you're going to go visit. So it's an interactive travel guide. You can click on, so here is Nassau in Paradise Island, and it shows you, let me zoom in a little bit. It shows you basically the travel updates for Nassau and Paradise Island. So here's the curfew right now. Here's what information on social gatherings, information on beaches and parks. Open daily. There are no more than 5 persons in a group. Indoor dining is permitted at hotels, but if it's not at a hotel, drive-through and takeaway options are available daily, 6 to 9 p.m. On Sundays, outdoor is now permitted at restaurants. So I actually went to a restaurant outside of the hotel, and there was only outside eating basically at the time. So that is still in effect. Okay, and then of course just like spa gym. So it has it. You can play around with this map, but I would definitely check this if you're watching the replay. Check this link. So, 2 months down the line to see what has changed about it. If you're getting value out of this video, I would encourage you to like this video and share it with people that may find this useful. Also, you can support the channel by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/KimH, or you can send me a super chat anytime during this live video. The information is scrolling at the bottom of this. All right, so let's move on. So that is an important link. And then next, let us go back to during the trip is you need to have a mask at all times, even if you've been vaccinated. So they were not playing down there. Mask even at the poolside bar when you're ordering. People were not playing with the mask. And that's another thing that could cause you to get a fine or jailed if you're not abiding by it. And an important thing to note is that you must take a test even if you're vaccinated. All travelers returning to the U.S., and hopefully you know this by now, that you must take a COVID test no more than 72 hours before the flight departure. And this was good because I was able to take a test at the Atlantis property. They provided a test. It was kind of included in the fees. And the test, I was able to schedule it online. And I took it on a Monday, and I was departing on Wednesday. So that fit the timeline. And I took the test, and I basically got my results in 30 minutes. It was a rapid test, but all rapid tests are not qualified for this. But because someone actually administered the rapid test, it qualified. And after I got the results to my email, I saved the PDF and showed it on my phone at the gate, or not at the gate, at the check-in, dropping my bags. The agent asked for my test results, and I showed it via my phone. So that made it pretty simple. If you're not staying in a hotel that provides testing, you can go to, again, that same site, bahamas.com/travel updates, and find a list of locations that provide testing. But I would advise you to be mindful of scheduling it so that you are within the 72 hours and that you're not kind of waiting last minute for it. Okay, so during the trip and just some trip details, Atlanta to Nassau, it was about $450 round trip on Delta. This was economy, and it was one of the cheaper options that I saw at the time, so that's why I went with this. Atlantis Bahamas has about 5 properties, and let me show you really quickly. Atlantis, like, it's massive if you haven't seen it. But this is a picture, but I'm going to show you my drone footage that I captured while I was there. And I actually had to get approval to bring my drone to the Bahamas, and that's the story for another day or for my other channel. But so here is basically an aerial view the of Atlantis, and it has literally like 5 properties and 3 Marriott properties on there on the resort. So this is the Royal as the main shot, and then there's a couple of properties you can see to the right. And I chose to stay at the Royal at Atlantis because it's a Marriott property, and it's right now, at the time, it was about 45,000 points per night. So I have a Marriott Bonvoy Amex that I've had for a while, since it was an SPG Amex. And I have information on, my review on my blog about Marriott. I'll put it in the description of this video. But they were not playing at this hotel. You had to basically do a temperature check before you go into, each time you leave and come back, you have to do a temperature check. And then also around the hotel, there's different, just different stations to make sure that you're clean. Everyone had on a mask. And yeah, so there wasn't any, you could request room service, but I just chose not to do room service during that time, just because of what's going on. And so I chose to stay there because of the 45,000 points per night. And then there's an additional $70 for fees, and they charge a gratuity automatically. Each restaurant and bar charges gratuity too, so that's a thing to consider. And I chose to do that because I have points, but I probably wouldn't stay there without points because it's pretty costly. You can see rooms starting anywhere from $300 to $500, and that's with all the fees. You always want to make sure you look at how much it's going to be with fees when you look at hotels. But that's how much it could be per night. So it's advantageous to use points for this hotel because you don't need a lot. 45,000 points is not a lot per night if you have a card or if you already have some spent up or saved up. And it's expensive too because it's not an all-inclusive hotel. There are all-inclusive hotels in Nassau, but you have to kind of be mindful of the time that we're in right now. Although it could be all-inclusive, capacity could be reduced. They might not really have buffets. They might be really giving you vouchers for restaurants. And I've read complaints where people are saying, at all-inclusive hotels, they had to wait hours to get, actually food, or, starting really early. So I just chose not to do an all-inclusive. One, because there weren't any all-inclusives where I could use points, but I just chose during that time to really go back when it could be a really full all-inclusive experience. And taxi rides and items in Nassau can be expensive. It's one of those islands where things are imported in. If you've ever been to somewhere like Turks and Caicos or something like that, things are imported in, so prices are expensive. To go from Atlantis Hotel to areas that were less than 15 minutes away, you could expect $20 to $30 for a taxi ride. But I mean, gas is $5 to $6 per there, and things were kind of expensive in the stores, and then things were just expensive in general, at the hotel, of course, because of how they have to import things in. Some things that I did, I was actually surprised. I thought I would do a lot more, but I wasn't there that long. Next time I need to go back. I wasn't there that long, and there was so much to do on Atlantis in general. There's a casino there. There's lounges that were open. There's over 20 restaurants there. There's a water park there. There's a lazy river. You can see after you watch this video, you can check out the tour that I did of the Royal at Atlantis, and look at it. It's amazing. And so I didn't do much outside of the hotel because you really didn't need to leave the hotel. Another option, though, if you're not able to afford Atlantis, there are Hotels that are nearby, like the Comfort Suites, a lot of people stay there, save money, and then buy a day pass to Atlantis. But sometimes it works out where, if you're using points, it's not really advantageous to stay off site. And then right now, you might have to take a test to get on the property and go to the water park. So it might work in your favor to just stay there. But again, the reason why I stayed at Atlantis is because I wanted access to the amenities past curfew. I didn't want to stay in a hotel that didn't have like a restaurant or different amenities like that. I didn't want to just be like kind of staring at the wall. Although 10 p.m. is kind of late, I just felt like I'm on vacation. It's my birthday. I want to, have that option should I like it. So some things that I did is I went to the rum cake factory. That's like something that's kind of just like standard in Nassau, Bahamas. It's like getting rum cakes. And I went to the fish fry, which is basically, if you've been to the Caribbean, some islands have fish fries. Sometimes it could be just like vendors setting up different food tents in a big park. Or in this case, in Nassau, it was a collection of, or basically a boardwalk of restaurants along a strip. And basically, you can try different restaurants. You could try conch fritters, all of that good stuff. And I went to and here's the restaurant I went to. It wasn't that crowded. Again, I went during the week, so it wasn't that crowded, but I went to the K at basically the fish fry. So it was really good. I would recommend it. Getting outside of the hotel, if you can, to try the local food. And let me just show something really quickly. So yeah, this is like some of the, let's see if you guys can see that. I don't think you guys can see it, but this is some of the food that I had. This is some of the food there that I had. Like, if you had any Caribbean mac and cheese, you understand, but it's really different compared to the U.S. Like, the vegetables and everything was just really fresh. So I really enjoyed the food there. Had some really great grouper and conch fritters. So I would definitely recommend going to the restaurant there. And again, it's called Legacy. The Legacy Deck fish at the fish fry. So check out Legacy. It's recommended. Okay, so let's move on. So that's a couple of things that I did. The next time I go, I want to visit the John Watling's distillery. I really just did not have enough time. Another thing that I would consider doing next time I go is going to stay between two hotels. I would stay at the Atlantis and look at Grand Hyatt Hotel at Bahamas. They just opened a water park in July this month. So that's really popular. The difference between kind of Hyatt, the Grand Hyatt Bahamas, and Atlantis is the Grand Hyatt Bahamas is a little newer. Atlantis recently renovated rooms in the East Tower, so you can see the details of that. I did stay in a renovated room. It was in December, but I would like to split my time between the two and stay longer. I stayed like 3 days, and that wasn't enough time at all. So I would definitely like to go back and stay between the hotels. I did have, when I went live earlier, I was talking about this, and Points Blank Travel was on here. He has a channel, so definitely check it out, about points and credit cards. So I'm looking into the Grand Hyatt or the Hyatt Chase, I believe it is. He has some information on that. So I would encourage you to go to Points Blank Travel and check out his channel. But I'm going to be looking into that card because I want to split my time between the two resorts. Atlantis was nice. There was some things like I didn't realize it was a smoking hotel. So some floors were non-smoking. I stayed on a non-smoking floor, but unfortunately my neighbors did not abide by those rules. So, I was kind of bummed about that because that's a lot, of points to be using on a trip and to be staying in a smoking hotel. I didn't really care for the smoke. Not a fan of that. So that's information on the trip. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Some people might think that it is a lot to do all this to travel, and they might just say, I'm just going to wait till things get better. But it wasn't really that bad to me. I kind of preferred it because in the U.S. it's kind of just like, do whatever. We're opening everything back up. You don't have to wear a mask, and I'm cringing. I like that they took these precautions over in Nassau, and I didn't mind going through these things. And again, it's a lot easier if you're vaccinated, so it's really not that bad. It's just a couple extra steps. And when you go out of the country, when you take an international trip, anyway, you're going to have to maybe apply for a visa, or you're going to have to do something, even prior to COVID, you had to apply to visas for some destinations. So it's just as if you were doing that, and it's just an extra step. I definitely will be going back to Nassau. I wasn't really expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I always thought of Nassau as like a cruise port destination or taking a cruise there. I never thought of flying there, and I actually enjoyed it. So I'll definitely be going back to Nassau. Hopefully next time I can stay longer. So that's about Nassau, and let's see, I think that's all about Nassau, but it's definitely an easy trip. It was about 2 hours flight. It's an easy trip, and Delta flies a lot of direct flights there. Flights out of all the destinations I looked at for travel at the time in June, that was the cheapest because a lot of places are expensive right now. I think a lot of companies are trying to recoup what happened from what happened last year. So that was the cheapest. And I only booked it like a month prior to flying because I was waiting on my passport. I talk about my passport renewal process and the journey with all that in another video. You can check that out. But I was waiting on my passport. So it was a quick and cheap for the flight. Of course, when you get there, it's a little expensive, but I would definitely recommend it. And another thing, too, is when you come back from Nassau to go to the U.S., you actually don't have to go through customs. We didn't have to go through customs in the Atlanta airport, which I did not know that. So that made it a lot more easier. Did not have to do anything once we got back to Atlanta. So that's information on traveling to Nassau Bahamas right now. I appreciate you for watching. Definitely subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. I post weekly videos. I'll either be going live or post a video. Again, you can support the channel by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/KimH. Or you can check out my store at store.workhardtravelwell.com and check out the apparel I have there. You can use code YouTube for free shipping right now. And feel free to share this video with anyone that is interested in traveling to Nassau, Bahamas right now. And again, my name is Kim with workhardtravelwell.com, and I will check you all next time. Thanks for watching.